What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Eric for showing love with the donation to the channel once again via the Cash App. To anyone that want to show love, and also they have a video request, you can use the link or links to the PayPal, the Cash App that you see running at the bottom of the screen, or in the link in the pinned comment in the comment section of this particular video. So, one of the growing anti-Michael Jordan arguments that you hear often from either the media or the, in this instance, allied Jordan hater crowd, they'll say that Mike only beat the Pistons when they got old, right? You hear that all the time. Oh, Mike only beat the Pistons when they got old. Now, never mind the fact that I vividly recall many odds makers, and I'm talking about just people that just looked at the odds of the situation. Sports betting wasn't legal back then, but people looked at the situation and they said to themselves, well, I think the Pistons have a really good shot at doing something that we haven't seen since the Bill Russell years, and that was three-peat, because they had repeated. And I remember Dennis Rodman carving in the back of his head, three-peat, at the start of the 1991 season, right? Now, unfortunately, I believe Isaiah Thomas had to have surgery on his wrist that year, and I think that limited him to like 48 games. And many people say that he was never the same after that surgery, right? But when you look at their ages, at the start of that season, Isaiah was 29. Joe Dumars was 27. Robin was 29. Only Bill Laimbeer was anything close to being past his prime, and he was 33. So how exactly is that an old team, right? But yet when the Bulls won their last title in 98, Jordan was 35 when they won the title. Pippen was 32. Robin was 37. Harper was 34. But the Bulls never used age as an excuse, although you could see the team at times looked a bit winded, but their hearts and their championship drive was able to overcome their failing and their declining physical abilities, right? But let's use this logic for LeBron then. If you're going to say that Michael Jordan only beat the Pistons because they got old, can't we then say that LeBron only beat the Celtics because they got old? In 2011, when he finally vanquished them in the semifinals, I believe at the time, Paul Pierce was 33, Kevin Garnett was 34, Ray Allen was 35, Shaquille O'Neal in his last year was 38, with noticeable gray hair, right? But you never hear the excuse that they got old. Plus, obviously, he was on the super team with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, right? Plus, he was on a super team. Because when you look at some of these lies that the media have told over the years, this is another lie that they put out there. The Boston Celtics Big Three was constructed to stop LeBron James. I remember when I heard Nick Rice say that. One of the biggest lies ever. The Boston Celtics Big Three was constructed for two reasons. Number one, It was constructed to compete against the Detroit Pistons, who had become the preeminent team in the Eastern Conference, and to compete against Kobe Bryant's Lakers, who I believe, you know what I'm saying, you could see that they were getting ready to make some moves. All right? You could tell that they were getting ready to make some moves to come out of the Western Conference. I think it was during the 2007-2008 season when they acquired Pau Gasol a little bit later on. But those were the main reasons why Danny Ainge made those moves. That's it. LeBron James had a flukish run in 2007, but nobody really was concerned about him. As a matter of fact, you know, oftentimes LeBron fans will talk about how Jordan got swept, you know, the early years of his playoff career. He lost in, 4 in the first round to the Milwaukee Bucks. But they'll say it, they used to say this all the time in the context of the pre-Giannis Bucks, because people knew that, you know, ever since the Glenn Robinson, Sam Cassell, Ray Allen Bucks, they had pretty much sucked. So when you say it, people think about, oh, the Bucks, they suck. But I say this all the time, the 1980s Milwaukee Bucks was the best team in the NBA in the 80s not to make it to an NBA Finals that decade. They won 59 games in 1985 compared to just 38 games for the Chicago Bulls. But the Bulls, they did win a game against them, right? It's also the only playoff series in Michael Jordan's career where he was actually outscored by another opponent. And it was just barely. He was outscored by Terry Cummings, who was an all-star level player at that time. The next couple of years, they lost to the Boston Celtics. You know, the Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, Bill Walton, great dynasty level Celtics. But somehow Michael Jordan and all his infinite power is supposed to defeat that team by himself, right? But yet, LeBron James fans go radio silent when you ask them, why did LeBron James miss the playoffs the first 2 years of his career? Another great question to ask LeBron fans, too, is, you know, prior to the rise of the Bulls in 90-91, I can't think of any year where anybody forecasted the Bulls to be favorites to go to the finals. Improvement, maybe they'll go past the first round and maybe get to the conference finals, but they were never forecasted to beat the Milwaukee Bucks or the Philadelphia 76ers when Julius Erving and them was there, right? Or the bad boy Pistons. But LeBron James, on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, he was forecasted to get past the Eastern Conference players and Eastern Conference teams in the late 2000s. Matter of fact, there was a mass media campaign in the late 2000s where it's supposed to have been in the finals, LeBron versus Kobe. That was supposed to be the marquee matchup. Unfortunately, even though Kobe went to back-to-back NBA finals, he did his part. LeBron James kept getting, you know, he kept having these hiccups, these stutter steps. He kept having these stutter steps. Whether it was he couldn't get past the Celtics or he couldn't get past the Rainbow Kid himself and Dwight Howard. Whatever the case may be, he kept faltering. Then you have to have a whole multi-million-dollar misinformation campaign from Clutch to try to muddy the waters and cover up what the real truth was. He's a choke artist. He's a stat pattern. He could fill up the box score, but when it really counted, he was a choke artist. This is coming from a former LeBron James fan. At least Michael Jordan had the excuse that, man, they were losing, the Bulls, they were losing to Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and, Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson, Julius Erving, Charles Barkley, as far as regular season concerned, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumas, Bill Laimbeer, Adrian Dantley, Mark Aguirre. They were losing to Hall of Famer type guys, man. Jordan losing to Hall of Famer type level players or all-star level players, Mark Price, Brad Daugherty. LeBron was losing to guys like, and was competing against guys like Jeff Teague, Roy Hibbert, losing to players like his main man now, JJ Redick, Rafer Alston, he was losing to Hito Turkoglu. I'm just saying, I'm not saying they were bad players. I'm saying it's just a talent drop off of seismic proportions. Just don't make no sense. But anyway, even with that, before I end this video, even with getting back past the Celtics in 2011, they still screwed things up in the finals, courtesy of him and him alone. And then the next year, they still struggled with Boston, including this game where Paul Pierce just hit a shot among all-time shots over that bum. And then when they finally got past Boston, when they got old and decrepit, the league still had to rig the finals. Kevin Durant, a guy who's never been noted for being in foul trouble, a guy who's never had a season where he averaged really more than 2 fouls per game, for some reason, for the only time in his career, was saddled with foul trouble in the 2012 NBA Finals. Because the league needed to help this bum that much. So anyway, that's all I had to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.